TV. This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hi there, Karen Ballokis here. Thanks for tuning in. I'm sure you're all doing wonderful things. It's such a sunny day today, cold. I don't think the birds have thawed out yet, but it's nice out there. It's sunny. And what do you want to do when it's sunny like this? You want to get outside. I mean, that's what I do. As soon as I walk outside, wherever there's no snow, I want to get my hands in that soil. I want to start doing things because this is a perfect time to start thinking about it. And on that subject, we have someone here that loves to do that kind of thing. Go out there and plant trees and make it look so nice. This is Doug McCallum, and he's from the Saugeen Habitat Collective, which is your new name now, isn't it, Doug?
Yes, it is. We were previously called Kincardine Naturalization Projects. Yeah. We realized it was a little bit too long and wordy. And we also wanted to kind of respect the fact that we're working within the Saugeen Conservation Authority river watershed. And also we wanted to make it a little more clear that we're trying to create habitat as well. So biodiversity is important to us. So we're trying to create more biodiversity by making it a more green area.
Yeah, well, I'm a tree hugger. I hate to see trees cut for any reason. Even when they die, I like to see them there because I see so many animals making little holes, nests in them. We have a pileated woodpecker around our house here, and he makes big holes, big ones. Yeah. But I know that other birds will nest in those holes, especially hummingbirds. That's what they say anyway. And if you got a pileated working on a tree, then your tree has got some bugs and he's taking care of it.
That's
correct.
Right. Yep. There's an ecosystem going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So tell us about when your organization started.
So I've lived in Kincardine now for about 35 years this fall. And when we moved here, we're not far from the Kincardine Golf Course, and there was a lot of forested land attached to it. And in 2019, a developer started developing his portion of it and basically clear cut about 5 acres of forest. And anyway, myself and another friend formed a Facebook group to try to raise consciousness about the fact that we were losing all of our trees and the habitat that goes with it and all the wildlife that, belonged in there. And so we began this group called Kincardinites Concern for Our Trees and started posting videos and pictures and just kind of giving people an idea that we are losing forest and there's no policies or any kind of bylaws to prevent it from happening. So developers could come in and just buy a forest and clear cut the whole thing. Mm-hmm. In the spring of 2021, another forest got cut down right beside it, another 5 acres. Really? And then another 5 acres across the road on Golf Links Road also got clear cut in between a bunch of houses. And anyway, the result was the fact that we lost 15 acres of forest within the old town of Kincardine in the north end within a span of about a year and a half.
Yeah, and the thing is, when they say 5 acres, not thinking about just how big that's going to get. 5 acres doesn't sound like a lot, but when you start adding on to it, like you said, that's 15 acres gone.
Yeah, so we were upset about it. We delegated to council at the time. This is a council previous to the one we have now. We delegated to them about creating tree bylaws, and they kind of just looked at us like we were from another planet or something. Like, why would you want to stop development? And the fact is, we were never against development. We just wanted more sustainable development to happen so that you could preserve some of the natural heritage that was a part of the area and not just build housing everywhere. So in response to that, Bill Stewart, one of the councillors, contacted me and asked me if I would like to plant some trees, kind of do the right thing to show that we actually do put our money where our mouth is and care. So I got about 100 little saplings from the Pine River Tree Initiative over in Ripley. And together, because it was COVID by 2020, we did this in the spring of 2020. Myself, the other lady who I formed the Facebook group with, and Bill Stewart, we all planted about 100 little trees in Riggin Park which abuts onto a big development out on the Beeline.
Mhm.
So we started with that. And I realized that those little trees are great, but they're going to take decades to become something you'll even notice.
Yeah.
So that spring, I delegated and had give a little talk to the Rotary Club in Kincardine, and they agreed to donate 50 larger size trees between 8 and 10 feet tall. So we did a fall planting at Riggin Park. And anyway, when we did that fall planting, we had about 60 people show up. And I should back up a little bit, another lady who belonged to our Kincardine group, she also donated about 100 trees from her property that came up as volunteers in her forest, little spruce, little pine, little cedar trees. So myself and 2 or 3 other people went and dug all these trees out on the Sunday morning when we did our planting and brought them along as well. So the next thing you knew, it was me who started this whole thing, and about 60 people that most of them I didn't even know. They just were coming out of people's backyards, and it was a really beautiful sunny day, and everybody was happy. There were people from little babies to elderly, retired people. One lady even sat in a wheelchair and just watched us do what we were doing, and it was just awesome to see the support we had. So it kind of warmed our hearts.
Yeah.
And the next spring, I did another little planting, but realized that I needed help. There was too much work for one to bring people in, coordinate what they were doing, to try to train them how to plant trees. Because some people show up and they want to do everything, they want to plant trees, but they've never done it. So
Yeah.
I found myself not. I found
There's a way
myself
to
not-
plant them. Yeah.
Yeah, I found myself not doing any planting during those first couple of events because mostly I was walking around helping people learn the proper way to plant trees and figuring out where we wanted to put the trees. So I put a notice on Facebook and asked for volunteers. I ended up with 5 people that showed up and said they would do it. Blair Bruyuha and Andrea Peebles and Linda Peebles and Sam Benson. They all agreed to join my group and became integral part of what I do. So they've all been instrumental in making this go forward. I got one person doing all the fundraising and another person doing all the kind of, I guess, keeping track of the finances, basically being a clerk for the group. Anyway, we created bylaws and we're a not-for-profit group, so we collect donations. So we've had very good success getting money from big companies like Bruce Power, OPG, Shikati Yoga Rhythm Company. They've been really amazing at donating money. We did a huge raffle the first year that we did this. We went around and the community was awesome for giving us gifts or services or food in the restaurants. So we basically held a raffle and we made close to $1,000, I think, on that in the end, which we put all towards planting trees and plants. And anyway, what we've done so far is we planted 3 parks. So we started with a Riggin Park and we basically filled it. And then we moved on to Savage Park, and the Savage family contacted us, and they were a big supporter of it and basically helped us plant trees. They brought in their machinery because they actually do, ironically, tree removal, and they've been busy with all the ash trees dying. So anyway, they came and they helped and they donated trees on their own as a family thing. This used to be a dump site at one time, Savage Park was, on the south end of Kincardine. So we basically added trees to a place that was a field. The town just cut it, but it was too rolly to ever play any sports in because it wasn't like a flat playing field really. And so we planted it full of trees and we continue to add little saplings there every spring. We do our elementary school plantings there. We've had Duncan Market and St. Anthony's School come with their kindergarten and grade 1 kids. And we have a morning and afternoon with each one of those groups. And we do a tree planting early in May usually. And anyway, so it's been amazing to watch those little kids come out and they come up 2 on 2. I dig a hole and then they get their hands dirty and push the soil in around the tree roots and another person stomps down the dirt around the tree to make sure that it's going to be healthy.
Oh, that's cute. That's a good idea, getting the little kids involved.
And we've also, with those same kids, put up birdhouses that somebody donated. So we put birdhouses up in Savage Park We put birdhouses up as well in Elks Park, or I'm sorry, Reagan Park. Elks Park, we don't have birdhouses in yet, but we do plan to in the future. And the park we're planting this spring is going to be on Boiler Beach Road.
Right.
And it's right beside the OPG Way, which is a paved trail that comes from Penetangor Road down to Boiler Beach. And apparently it's used a lot by community living people. They come down to the hill to walk to the lake. And so we're planning on making a little seating area in there, a little pathway in where people can come on their wheelchairs or on foot or whatever and sit and just kind of meditate to nature and read a book or whatever they want to do, or just sit and watch the birds fly around. So this will be our fourth park this year that we're doing. Now, when we do a park, we're not necessarily finished with it when we go in there and plant our trees. We go back later. Like I said, we put bird houses in a couple of parks, but we didn't do that until the year later. It's kind of a planning thing. So anyway, this year I hope to get more bird houses, and they may go in this spring. They may wait until fall, but they'll be there for next year's birding migration when it happens. So,
Well, yeah, because the birds are the ones that plant a lot of trees, aren't they?
they do, and they help keep insects down. They clean up weed seeds as well by eating them,
Yeah.
and inadvertently they spread different species of trees and plants and everything.
Oh, yeah. And of course, the trees are going to bring in the squirrels, which also do a lot of planting.
Yeah,
They're great
exactly.
little harvesters.
Yeah.
And I know in one of your notes it said about putting up bat houses.
Yes, we had bat houses built. The only trouble we've had with our fields of trees that we planted, because essentially they were just an open green grass that the town evidently eventually quit cutting. We don't have anything really to attach a bat house to, except to put in a huge pole to attach it onto. So what I did was we got some bat houses built, but what I did was I donated them to the scouting organization in Kincardine, because Robinson Park on Russell Street, they had to clear a bunch of ash trees out, and found that a couple of the ash trees were hollow on the inside and actually had bat colonies that had been there for a long time.
Wow.
So I donated our bat houses to them, and they put them up into some tall trees that surrounded the area. So anyway, yes, we're trying to build a home for birds and bats. And a heartwarming thing is last year I walked around Reagan Park and also Savage Park and noticed that the birds are beginning to build nests in the crooks of some of the trees that we planted.
They're getting comfortable. It's establishing itself.
Oh yeah, the trees are now about 10 feet tall, and I go back every year and I trim the lower branches off of the tree so that we don't end up with just a big bushy branching tree. Someone will someday come along and cut off too large of a branch, which will cause damage to the tree. So what I want to do is promote upward growth so we get more tree canopy, more shade.
Yeah.
That'll give us a few good things. For one, it'll create more habitat for birds to come and nest in. It'll give them a place to roost and get safely away from all the wildlife on the ground that wants to eat them. And also, eventually the tree's canopy will become so large that we won't be getting any weed growth on the ground coming up. We won't be eating any purple knotweed, which is right now kind of a problem at Savage Park. There's a lot of purple knotweed. It's kind of like an old-fashioned coneflower plant that people used to plant in their backyards, except it's more aggressive and bigger.
Is it like a ground? Oh, it's not a ground cover then?
No, it grows to be about 3 feet tall. And it's a pretty plant. It gets a nice pink, mauvey kind of colored flower in the summer. However, it does tend to grow very thick on the ground and draws a lot of nutrients and water out of the soil.
Yeah.
So, but that will eventually take care of itself as the trees get bigger, cast shade over the ground, and they won't have a chance to grow anymore.
Now, these properties that you plant, they're just they're municipal properties, right?
That's correct.
And they've just kind of been left abandoned in a sense?
They have now. Originally, they were every park that we've planted in, Elks Park being no exception. Elks Park is kind of like, I'm not sure if it used to be a gravel pit or whether it was just a natural eroded area where there's big hills all around it. So one side of Elks Park, when you walk down from the end of Kingsway Street, there's a trail that goes right through it that is owned by the Kincardine Trail Group. So they built the trail right through the whole park, and it leads over to the North Line extension. There's also a creek that flows through Elks Park, which tends to flood every year during the big rain events that we tend to get all the time now. And so we planted a lot of trees in there. The town was cutting all the grass, including the hill, which they still do, which is a lot of grass area to cut. Kind of, it seems like kind of a lot of money to spend on something that not very many people use really. And also the area where we planted trees, the town used to cut, and that's probably about 3 acres maybe at Elks Park. Savage Park's probably another 4 to 5 acres maybe. And Riggin Park was probably about 3 acres that we planted trees in, so they no longer have to cut that either.
Yeah.
So we've probably taken about 10 acres of grass cutting out of the requirements for the town to maintain every year
That's
by
good.
doing all this work. And they've just kind of let it grow. So it's amazing what is suppressed in the ground when you start letting it go wild again. Like basically we have
Yes.
flowers coming up from the ground that have been probably cut for years and years and never had a chance to grow. But all of a sudden now they're coming up out of the ground. We've had sumac trees growing at, especially at Savage Park, basically coming up the hill from the river because they
Yeah.
send the roots out and then they send a shoot up. You end up with all these beautiful staghorn sumac, which has the red berries on them, and the
Yeah.
birds love them, the squirrels eat them, all kinds of wildlife live in them, birds nest in it. So these things are kind of all naturalizing in our park that we have planted. So along with planting trees for coverage so that we get canopy coverage, we're also, in the last 2 years, we started doing food forests. So we're planting trees and shrubs that people can come and pick berries from. If we don't eat them, then the animals will. Either way, something is going to benefit from having them there. At
Yeah.
Savage Park, we actually planted a few non-native trees, pear and apple trees, just so that they'd be there for people if they want to come along and pick a few apples in the future. Now we're talking years down the road. It takes quite a while to create a tree that's producing fruit after
Yeah.
you plant it. The other kind of tree we planted for fruit is Saskatoon berry or
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
so last year, one thing I've got to say good about municipality of Kincardine is last year downtown, they put all these barrels out along the new road they built. And each one of them has got a service berry in it, Saskatoon berry. They get a white flower in the spring, and then they turn into an edible berry, which is much like a blueberry. My mom used to call them a poor man's blueberry because they're a little more gritty, but they taste very good, and you can make really nice jams out of them. They're very high in antioxidants and really full of vitamins and minerals, and they're really good for you. People do harvest them. The tree would have to get a little bigger before that would ever be a real possibility.
And they're non-native? That's non-native?
Just
Is that a
native.
non-native plant?
That's native. Yeah, the
it
service
is native.
berry or Saskatoon berry, as it's known, is native.
Yeah.
I've camped a few times at provincial parks in the north where Saskatoon berries are so common that you basically get tired of eating them after a while. They're just so plentiful. And they're really, really nice. So anyway, we've encouraged those to be planted in our plantings. Last year, we planted pawpaw trees for the first time ever. And they're a native tree to southern Ontario, more south of here. But because we live by the lake, our temperature and climate is moderated by the warmer, relatively warmer Lake Huron waters compared to the inland, 20 miles inland even. So it'll do well here. So we've been planting pawpaw, and they get like a mango kind of a fruit on them, smaller than a real like mango from, say, Mexico, but quite edible. People are really enjoying them. If you go on Facebook, there's actually pawpaw groups that explain how they're used, what they look like, what they taste like.
I'd never heard of that.
I've personally never even eaten one. I grew up around London, Ontario, and I don't know if I ever saw them as a kid growing up along the rivers there, but I can't remember them. But they're becoming more common because people are planting them. They were kind of losing territory due to habitat destruction and that kind of thing, but they are a normal tree for Ontario. The other tree we're trying to get a hold of, it's hard to get in this area, is shagbark hickory.
Don't know it.
Which is a hickory tree.
Never heard of that one.
However, it gets a nut on them that are quite like a hazelnut. They're very sweet. You can eat them right off the tree, like after they drop to the ground.
So very edible plant, very
Yes.
edible trees. Yeah.
Yes, and if we don't eat them, they're really great for squirrels and animals to eat. And we planted a few American beech trees too, which get a small nut on them. And at one time, they were the main source of food for the passenger pigeons that used to be in this area back in the, until the 1800s when they became extinct due to human hunting and habitat loss. So anyway, we planted a few beech trees too in our plantings, and we've tried to stick totally to native trees, and basically that's what we've done. Now, a few people have tried to bring me trees that weren't native to plant, and I had to politely just say, I can't do that. We have a mandate. We have an agreement with the town that we will not plant, say, a Norway maple. We will not plant a lilac bush, even though they're pretty and they're nice and everyone loves them. They're not native and they will spread a little bit too much.
Yeah, they sure will.
So we've had, a few learning curves as we've gone along since we began our group in 2022 officially. That's when we became a real group. Before then, it was just myself and, one or two other people doing it. Now
Yes,
we're an organization.
one of them is my neighbor, Linda Peebles. She's
Linda is in our executive.
Yeah, she's one of my neighbors. I know her well.
Yes.
And when I saw her name, I thought, wow, I didn't even know she did that sort of thing. I don't see her all the time, but yeah.
She's been involved in most of our tree plantings, but she's also our treasurer because she does accounting, so it's a natural fit for her.
That's
and
good.
Her daughter, Andrea, is our, kind of our legal expert because she is a lawyer and keeps us under, kind of thumbs a little bit so that we don't do anything that we shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, because you really don't know what the laws are, especially for municipality there and your Ontario laws, your provincial laws, because I'm sure they're got to be different for all regions about what you can and can't plant, what is invasive. I mean, you're getting more into that now, learning what's invasive and what isn't, I suppose, and what goes naturally together too.
Yeah. So we work together with other groups in town here too. There's a group that is actively working on getting rid of garlic mustard in the area.
Yeah.
It's kind of a never-ending cause, I think. But at least people are coming out. They're doing garlic mustard pulls, trying to get rid of the balsam. What's it called? Balsam. There's another flower that grows pretty wild at Getty's Park these days. Himalayan balsam. It's actually a very beautiful pink orchid.
I'll have to check that out. That's just it. Because they look pretty, I'm sure people would be inclined to encourage them.
Yes, like ornamental grasses and that kind of thing. Everyone's planting them, but then they escape and they become a problem somewhere else.
Well, look at the Phragmites, what's gone on with the Phragmites here. I've had them on way back when I first started doing this, and I was amazed at how aggressive that plant is and what damage it can do. And people like the look of it because it is a nice looking plant, but they don't realize just what can happen just from a little wee piece and go wild.
Yeah, one root will sprout and then grow and then expand.
Yeah, because we showed up this way, I can't remember which part, where they went in with a big tractor to pull this stuff out. And that could happen with any of these native, non-native plants that are being put in. They can just go crazy.
Yeah, there's no natural controls for these things, so they just kind of get in there and then there's nothing to remove them.
Yeah.
So, in our park we're doing this spring, in the future, I imagine we'll have an issue with probably garlic mustard growing. It's the first property that we've done where there is no growth on the property. It's mostly just been all torn up by taking the trees down. It's kind of chewed up a little bit. It's mucky. It's very wet. So I'm thinking we may have in the future garlic mustard. Now, eventually the canopy of the forest will, again, kind of, shade it out, but it'll be there for a while, I would think. So
I'm going to have a look on our property. We have 7 acres down in Verhuron, and I'm sure some of this stuff grows, although we have a forest here. And there's a lot of it that there's nothing grows underneath unless you get a new cedar, which you get a lot of those, and poplars. But I'm sure there's some of it in the open areas that's sort of stuff I should really be looking for, because I love to see the native plants, but maybe they're not native.
Yeah.
They look native, but maybe they're not.
The nice thing about most, invasive plants. They were brought over here for a purpose originally. Like garlic mustard came from Europe in the 1800s, and it was a medicinal, very nutritious kind of plant. People use it for making pesto and in salads. It tastes like garlic, and it's very, very high in nutrition. So people brought it here originally thinking, well, it'd be great to be able to eat this stuff, and they did.
So I guess when you find it, instead of just ripping it out, use it, and then try to get rid of it.
Exactly.
But use it while you got it.
Eat it. It's good for you.
Yeah.
So in the area, there's a lot of other, when I walk some of the trails in the municipality, like even Inverhuron Park where I walked in cross-country ski, I noticed back in the past, pioneers must have planted periwinkle.
Oh, yeah.
For one thing, and it's everywhere now.
Oh, yeah.
The bottom of the golf course, there's a public hiking trail there, and it grows well up into the trees. It's everywhere, and there's ivies that shouldn't be there, but they're all over the trees, and they're kind of...
Well, I do have it here, and I did put it there just so that, because it was, when they first built the house, there were a lot of open areas, and it was just a lot of dirt. And it was so pretty. I'm a city girl. I come from the concrete jungle. And I thought, wow, look at this pretty plant that grows, and I don't even have to do anything. Just put it there, and it'll grow. So it's nice in the woods right now, but it can be invasive, can't it?
Oh, it takes over, like the whole area eventually. I think,
it takes over, but does it do harm?
Well, it can. It's crowding out the native plants that would have been growing underneath the trees in the original days before colonization.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of taking plants that would have fed the natural insects and the natural animals that lived here away, because basically it'll choke them out. And so in that way it causes harm. I mean, it's giving off oxygen and maybe something eats it, I don't know. But as far as keeping things more native, it's destroying the balance. Like things like
and I always thought it was something that was from here. It was indigenous. So I thought, isn't this great? I never thought of it as being non-native. I always thought it belonged here.
Yeah, it's like
you see it everywhere.
It's like lily of the valley. I love that plant. It smells really nice in the spring, but once you plant it, it goes everywhere and forms a thick clump all over the ground.
Yeah.
And you'd be better off planting native plants in a forest like trilliums and jack-in-the-pulpits and things that are more, inclined to attract the birds and the bees and everything that else that originally would have used it for, some function.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what we try to encourage in our group as well.
I know when we first came up here, coming from the city, we were amazed to see trilliums, and they're red. On our property, the red ones. Yeah. I don't have any white. Never seen any white. They're always red. Jack-in-the-pulpits, which I saw when I was a kid once, and it amazed me that they grow wild here. I had one growing in the front of my house, and it was probably close to 3 feet high. And it produced berries one year and never came back. And I was so disappointed that I thought it would recede. I see little ones in the bush, and also ginger.
Yeah,
see ginger out. Yeah, and that's amazing.
Purple, the beautiful tiny purple little flower on it.
Yeah. I actually have a lot of that wood violets. Is that what you call little wood violets? Purple ones. Yeah, a lot of those around too. Yeah, everywhere. I think those are
all native plants, and they serve a purpose. They feed the bees in the early spring, and they're good to have around. There are, quite a few wild plants you can buy from nurseries nowadays that would be originally from here.
Yeah.
And there are organizations in town that actually sell, or with a donation, give seeds to people so they can plant native plants. Amanda Saxton does a lot of great work with native plants and seeds. She gathers them, stratifies them over winter, and then her children, grow them, for a scout fundraising thing, and then people can plant them and try to encourage more native plants to be growing. So yeah, that's what we do.
I guess there's a lot of people that, like myself, that aren't really sure what is native and what isn't. Because like I said, I always thought periwinkle, because it grows so prolific here, that it was a native plant. Just like St. John's wort is all over the place here, things like that. There's a lot that I see growing, and I just assume that it should be here.
Yeah. Well, it's naturalized itself. It's become part of the environment, but
Yeah.
not really a plant that you'd want to try to plant in the bush. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's just if you're in a bush, there's not much that will grow under a big canopy of trees. There's a lot of places on our property that nothing will grow underneath the trees. They're so well established. But in any open places that we have created here, I've seen things that grow that I've never seen before. There's a lot of things I've seen that I've never seen before, that being in a forest, which you love the idea, like I say, the pileated woodpecker, never saw one of those before. Just the one, the cartoon, that's it. But never saw one before. And it amazed me when I saw it. What is this thing? It is huge. And a couple of winters ago, I had a fisher on my lot. Had no idea what that was. It looked like one big cat. And it took me a while to figure out, what is this thing? And they're not that common, apparently. You don't see them a lot. I think over in the Inverhuron Park, you see them. I think someone told me there were some there.
I've seen one before. It looked like a small bear, almost like a wolverine kind of an animal.
That's exactly it. Like a weasel, a wolverine. It was, I mean, I caught it out of the corner of my eye because it stood there. And then I got it on my trail cam. See how it kind of moves. Doesn't move like a cat. And that's something that, being in a nice environment, like a wooded environment, attracts things, not necessarily that, but they're going to attract some of these other chipmunks, squirrels, things that are part of, like you said, ecology, dropping seeds, digging them in, getting trees planted that we don't even know are there. So things like that, when you have a nice forest of that, and now putting in trees that produce fruit, that's going to be even better.
Yeah, it'll be nice for people. And maybe not everyone will know about them. Not everybody even forages like wild food because people are afraid of getting worms in an apple or that kind of thing. And we're not going to be spraying anything, like no harmful chemicals at all. No. So a lot of people probably wouldn't do that. They probably go to the grocery store and buy their fruit, but it's a shame.
I know. We have to take a quick break, Doug. So we'll be back in just a second. So don't go away, anybody. We've got more to talk about. So just hang in there.
Okay.
Yeah, we just got to take a quick break, Mark.
As I looked upon the battlefield in front of me, a German star shell lit up the desolate landscape. I watched as a bullet smashed through the bridge of my nose and left me to the mercy of the darkness. I worried I would be dependent on others for the rest of my life. But Sir Arthur Pearson and the staff of St. Dunstan's had other plans. With their help, I knew I could be self-reliant, and I wanted to bring this idea home to Canada. I wanted Canadians to know that we could hold jobs, that we could contribute, that regardless of sight, all would read, that we, the blind, would shape our own lives, our own destiny.
Blinded by a sniper's bullet in 1915, Edwin A. Baker went on to co-found the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, shaping a path forward for the blind across Canada for generations to come.
RTV Sports Wrap every Wednesday as myself, Spencer Byers, and our esteemed panel talk about everything you need to know going on in football, basketball, baseball, hockey, and soccer as we joust about what's going on in sports, keeping you up to date on Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm Lynn from Third Eye View, and welcome to a brand new season that we're looking forward to. We have some return guests and some brand new guests. And in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your summer, stay safe.
Okay, thanks for coming back. This has been really interesting because a lot of people, like myself, have no idea what is naturally grown here and what has been brought here, because people are bringing things here because they're pretty. When I was living in the city, somebody brought me bamboo. And I thought, wow, is this ever nice looking? Boy, did that thing spread. And that was almost impossible to get rid of. So I know better. I know better now. I try to make sure whatever I'm planting is something that's not going to go wild like some natural grasses, ornamental grasses, which can. On the break, Doug and I were talking about mulberry trees. And now they're called trees, not bushes, right? I guess they are considered
They
a
are
tree.
trees, yes.
Yeah. And I was saying that I have a couple on my property. And the berries looked so good, and I was so afraid to eat them because I didn't know if they were poisonous or not, because you just don't know. And he was telling me. So tell us about some of these mulberry. Now, are you planning? Oh, yeah, you do have red mulberry on your list to plant.
Yes, we're trying to locate some that we'd like to plant. Sometimes our dreams kind of outstrip the reality in that some things aren't commercially available. So we're hoping we can get red mulberries for this spring. If we don't, we'll be planting them in the future if we can find them in Ontario, if they're commercially available. A lot of people have mulberry trees on their property, but quite often they're white mulberries, which are from Asia, non-native, and they've kind of pollinated with the native red mulberries to create strains that aren't pure red mulberries anymore. The fruit are all edible, so don't be afraid of eating mulberries. Generally, the rule of thumb is if you see an animal eating a mulberry or a fruit of any kind, it's generally safe for people.
Well, it's good to know, except these trees are fairly big and I'm not climbing them. So if I can shake them down.
Yeah.
But now, when you say about the white mulberry, is the berry actually white or is it still red?
I have seen them when they're actually white.
Oh.
Usually they're red. And sometimes when they're really, really purple, those are more like the true red mulberry, like purple. Sometimes you'll see them when they're falling off and they're not even really red. They're kind of a mix of white and red, or maybe a light purple color. Those are more likely, more pure white mulberry strain rather than the red mulberry.
Yeah.
But I eat them all. I mean, I find they all taste great.
I've just never taken that chance. Just like mushrooms, I'll only eat the morels that I find, but I've never thought of eating the mulberries off the tree because I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Now I do.
There's a lot of bushes and trees that you can eat the fruit and the greenery of. You just have to be very sure of what you're eating. I personally go out and I forage a little bit for, say, black raspberries in the summer, red raspberries. I'll look for wild leeks and take a few to, put into soups and stews and freeze them for the winter.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I of course pick mulberries and I freeze them, so in the winter I can make a smoothie out of them. So the idea of planting food forests is the fact that people can go out and forage, or if you're walking with your kids or your grandkids and you want to say, hey, let's go pick that berry. I know what it is. You've identified for sure what it is, and you go and eat it. I want to make that kind of environment too, where people can feel safe and free to go out and eat some of the things that they see growing wild.
Yeah.
Because originally we didn't get our food from a grocery store. It came from, the backyard or the forest or someplace that you knew, you could eat the food from. So that's the kind of environment that I think we need to get back to more people living off of the land and knowing what is safe to eat. So we're planting red raspberries and black raspberries, and we're even planting currants, which are a native plant.
Oh, yeah.
So we're planting some of those along the way. We try to do a balance of shade trees. Like one tree we've been planting in all our planting so far is a tulip tree, which is more of a Carolinian tree, like Grand Bend and south, all the way across to Toronto. And it's a beautiful big tree, gets huge flowers on it, look like a tulip, and that's why they call it a tulip tree.
Yeah.
The bees love the flowers, the bumblebees, everything is pollinating off of them. So we're trying to encourage pollination. Also, we planted a lot of basswood trees as well. They get kind of a yellow flower on them in the spring, and they actually smell like honey when you walk by them. And if you ever walk by a very mature one, you'll hear the sound of the bees buzzing in the tree because they're taking all the pollen to make honey with. So,
okay, now when you say tulip trees, and a lot of people say magnolia trees, they're two different things, right?
Two different things. The tulip tree is actually from the poplar family.
Yeah.
Another name for it is yellow poplar, and it's actually the biggest tree in the forest. Like when they're growing pure. If you ever go down, I hate to say the United States, but if you ever go down to Kentucky or Tennessee, you'll see huge tulip tree specimens that are like 3 or 4 people arm lengths around. They're huge.
Yeah. I know I saw that in when I would go down to Detroit. My brother lived down there, and it was the rhododendrons and azaleas. Like they're monstrous. And I mean, we're lucky if we can grow them here, and they are huge there. So I guess the tulip and magnolia tree are of course, like I say, magnolia isn't quite a tulip tree, is it? I think people get them confused.
Magnolia is different, and I'm not sure where it originated from, but I've been down to Tennessee before, and down there they have rhododendrons and they have Of course, a lot bigger trees that we have, like tulip trees and sycamore
Mm-hmm.
trees, which are another tree we planted a lot of.
Yeah.
And they're a beautiful tree. They get kind of like mottled gray, white bark, and eventually become a very huge tree. You'll see them more down towards London, Thames River, even the Maitland River at Goddard. You'll see huge specimens of sycamore trees growing.
Yes, I remember seeing them when I was in Detroit, and because they were spotted trees.
Yes.
Wow, this is a different looking tree, but it was a beautiful tree. It was beautiful, but the bark was completely different. And that isn't some. Okay, now sycamores, are they native here?
They're native here, yes. And there's a huge population down by Goderich.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there were here too at one time before all the logging happened in the
Yeah,
past couple of centuries.
yeah.
They're everywhere. I talked to a naturalist from Goderich one day, and she said they were probably all over, but they were a very desirable tree for lumber.
I wondered about that.
They
Yeah.
mostly got cut down. The Maitland River used to be banked with them like everywhere. And I still see them when I'm walking the upper parts of the Maitland, upper Ben Miller area. So yeah, they're native to here, and they do very well, again, because of the kind of climate affected area we live in because of the lake. It keeps it warmer in the fall and a long, warm, relatively warm summer growing season for them. So they do quite well here. One thing I should talk about too is the municipality of Kincardine. When we first started out our group, we didn't have insurance coverage, and that was kind of a big tipping point for us, wondering what would happen if someone got hurt on the day when they were planting.
Yeah.
So we are now covered by the municipality of Kincardine for that.
That's good.
To get around it, we don't have like an insurance policy ourselves, but we have coverage by them. They actually give us someone to oversee the work we're doing the day of the planting.
Good. Good idea.
On the 27th of April, when we're doing the Boiler Beach project, we'll have somebody from the municipality show up, and they will basically give a safety briefing and walk around and make sure people are, doing things the way they should be doing them.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we're under their umbrella for that.
That's good. Just in case somebody gets a splinter and it gets infected.
Yeah.
There's a figure.
Well,
Yeah.
you're working with shovels, and you're working, lifting up a heavy tree maybe, or moving a tree that maybe weighs 30 or 40 pounds, and you're moving it around, and you could possibly get hurt, I guess. But so far, no one's ever hurt themselves. And I'd like to think that most Canadians probably, if you ever cut your hand on something, you'd probably just say, "Oh, that was dumb. I should have been wearing gloves," which caused the problem. But
Yes.
anyway, just in case, we're covered under their umbrella for that. And they also provide us usually with mulch for putting around the trees.
Oh, that's good.
So it took a little while to get the municipality online with what we were trying to do, because we worked with, say, Bill Stewart, a councillor. However, we didn't necessarily go and talk to the town staff, who were the people actually on the ground doing the real work. And so we've been on a learning curve with the municipality and with the whole process of doing public plantings. And so far, no one's been hurt. And we've actually got quite a good relationship going with the municipality now. We're trying to make it stronger, and, we're working together.
Yeah.
We originally would walk around town, or, in our neighborhood, we knew about parks that weren't used for anything except for grass cutting. So we, as a group, would get together and talk about where we'd like to plant. And I think I said Alps Park 2 years ago would be a nice park, because I walked that trail and I can see that there's no, reason for the grass to be cut there. So we approached the town, and we had to provide them with mapping of what we wanted to do, what species of trees we wanted to plant, what our game plan was. And then we do a walk around with the town, and they come and they tell us what requirements we have. Like, don't plant too closely to the pathway, and don't plant anything on this side of the path because it's tobogganing hills in the wintertime. So we've been following their rules and working with them and mapping everything out, so there aren't any big surprises for either party on the day of the planting or afterwards when things grow a little bit. So anyway,
I love that.
been a good.
I love that they're doing that.
Yeah. So we're trying to work with them a little bit for the future, and they've got ideas too of where they'd like us to plant now. Our only issue is trying to get the amount of funding that we need every year from all these great organizations that donate money to us.
Yeah.
It's sustainable. Like this year, we've got enough for the Boiler Beach project for sure, and we'll be the ones putting in the pathway from the main trail that people can
Yeah.
sit on a bench, working with the trail committee as well on that project.
Now, can people, okay, you said about a bench, can people donate the bench or towards a bench for it?
People could definitely donate towards the bench, and they could donate money towards just planting trees.
Just
if they
planting
want,
trees.
or plants or wildflowers. We do them all throughout the whole year.
It's just getting it out there.
It's just getting our face out there, I guess, and
Yeah.
the reason why we need money. So this year we have enough to do this Boiler Beach project, but after that, we're just kind of waiting and seeing. When we apply for loans and grants, or not loans, but grants and that kind of thing that come, usually it's in the January of the year when you're doing the planting. So I just ordered my trees a month ago when I knew we had funding coming from one organization. And so now we're just trying to figure out what we can do for the rest of the year. The first year we did our plantings, we did most of it in the spring, and that worked out well. We had a good amount of rain that summer. The second year we did our planting in 2021, we had a very droughty kind of June and July. So we had to ask for water from the town, but they didn't, unknown to us, they didn't have the staffing because of COVID.
Oh, right.
We didn't have a truck that they could just leave with us to water. So we ended up getting somebody that loaned us a couple of these big farm totes for water.
Yeah.
And then we had to buy water from a local company and have it trucked and dumped into our tank for us.
Oh, that's terrible.
So we have moved most of our plantings into a fall planting now.
Yeah.
The exception being this one we're doing on Boiler Beach Road because it's such a wet property. There's kind of seepage coming from the hills above, it's heading towards the lake. So we're able to plant there in the spring this year. That's why we're doing it. But most of our plantings the last 2 years took place in the fall.
Yeah, because isn't it warm days and cool nights are best for trees?
It's best for them so they don't get shocked, because when you take a pot and open it and take the roots out and kind of open them up a little bit, it's a shock to the tree. It's been growing in a pot for a while. And then you put them into a dry piece of ground because we don't have a water source where we're planting.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because these are pieces of property that have been left. So nobody had to water them. I mean, because it's just grass or whatever's growing. So
Exactly.
nobody thought about watering or feeding. Now, what about feeding these trees once they're in?
Feeding them, I'm not too concerned about, because once the roots get into the ground,
Yeah.
there's enough nutrients in the ground to begin with. Then you have wildlife coming, and you have, just nutrients falling from the rain, from the sky, that help to feed the trees. And in nature, generally, you wouldn't be fertilizing a tree when it's in the ground. It would just kind of grow and, get
That's true.
minerals and things it needs from the soil. So we don't put any fertilizer in the ground when we're planting. We just kind of let them. Now, that being said, the trees we're buying commercially from whatever nursery we get them from, they come usually with fertilizer in the soil that they've planted them in the pot. So the first few years they grow, there is fertilizer in the soil that they're getting a bit of nutrition from.
Yeah.
And then after that, the roots reach down and grab a hold of whatever they can from the soil.
That's good.
Or else like a natural forest.
Let's talk about this Boiler Beach, because that's coming up and you need volunteers, I would imagine.
We do.
Yeah. Now, how many do you think you need?
I would think probably 30 to 50 people would be really awesome.
Okay.
We normally get 30 to 50 people without even much advertising. Usually our Facebook groups get enough people out. But the nice thing about getting volunteers coming out is everybody that volunteers becomes aware of what we're doing. And then by word of mouth, the name of your group spreads, and people realize what we're all about.
Yeah.
And we're not some government organization. We're just a not-for-profit working on our own. I'm retired, so now I just do this for fun. And the other people, they've all got jobs right now, except for maybe, the Peebles may be retired, Doug and Linda. But most of us are just, working because we love doing this kind of work.
Yeah.
And so the planting we're doing on the 27th of April, which is going to be at 1 Boiler Beach Road, which is right beside OPG Way, the paved trail that comes from Penetangor Row. We're starting our planting at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And people are to show up a little bit before. We'll get people to, just sign on to a list so I know who we're getting. What we'd like to do is send emails out to people in the future so they're aware of plantings because not everybody's on social media.
Yeah, that's true.
And we've relied on social media for most of our promotions and getting the word out there.
That's how I saw it. And I was quite happy to see that because I do love to see trees being planted in these areas that are just blank spaces because it seems like a waste. I know that I have had relatives come over from Europe and they say they are amazed that we have so many fields with nothing growing in them. Not around here so much, but back in Hamilton, there were so many fields that were just left and they were shocked because they use every little bit of land and we don't take advantage of that. And it's a shame to see that. Like I said, we don't cut anything down unless we have to. Even when a tree falls down, leave it there, let the animals take it and do what they want with it. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to do it, but you know, we really like the idea of planting trees. In fact, when we bought the property, there was some sort of program. If you had so many acres, you could get saplings that were maybe this big for about 10 cents each. This is back in the 80s. Yep. And we went around our property and planted mostly pine because there's not a lot of pine here on our property. There is over at the park. I noticed a lot of pine there. So we planted a bunch of these pine trees and they're still pretty damn small. Like, yeah. I mean, they're not even a Christmas tree size. We're probably talking 4 or 5 feet, but they started off maybe a foot. Yeah. It was a sapling. So it takes a long time for these things to grow. So if you're getting mature trees, that certainly helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, they're between 6 and 10 feet tall normally, depending on what we're getting. It's a really big head start. We have planted the little trees before. The ones I started with in Riggin Park in North Kincardine, they were about a foot tall when I planted them. Mm-hmm. Some of the cedar trees were only about 6 inches tall. They were really small that year. And I was over trimming a couple the other day, and some of the cedar trees are now 1.5 feet tall. Yeah. Some of the walnut trees, though, they've grown to be about 6 feet tall in some cases. So, you know, genetically, just like every person, we're all different sizes, and the trees kind of are the same. You can plant 2 oak trees, and one will grow very quickly, and the other one won't. And part of that's depending on the soil you plant them in too. Yeah. If you're sitting in sand, pine trees do extremely well. Yeah. And if you're sitting in really heavy clay, they don't do so well. They're really slow growing. The roots don't grow as quickly. But if you have sand and you plant a white pine tree, after about 20 years, the tree should probably be about 20 to 30 feet tall.
I notice a lot of trees here, especially cedars, because we have so many cedars, poplars, and I can't remember what the other one is called. We have so many here that don't have much in the way of roots because it's all rock here, like gravel. It's like they're growing in gravel. There's very little soil. In fact, when I first came up here, I would see where a tree had fallen and rotted, and I would take all that and use it for soil because it's such good soil. But because there's just not a lot of dirt, any kind of soil here. It's so I'm surprised anything grows the way it does.
Yeah, it's really variable. Like where I live near the golf course, it's mostly sand, and I grow a little vegetable garden every year. But I find keeping water in the soil and trying to keep any nutrients in the soil is really tough because it just leaches through. Yeah. Whereas when we planted Savage Park, it was such a heavy clay that I was kind of worried that everything would just bake in the clay. But actually, it's really done quite well. Except you find the odd tree you plant just doesn't make it. For whatever reason, some of them just don't make it. So. We go back and we'll replant those in the future, but we're kind of learning as we go, that some trees maybe don't do so well in different kinds of soil. So we're kind of changing our plans with the odd place based on what we know and what we see there.
So what kinds of trees are you actually looking for? Say if somebody wanted to donate, I guess it's better to donate the money so you can buy it rather than donating the tree.
If people had, say, small sugar maples, like up to about 7 or 8 feet tall, you could actually dig out without killing them. Yeah. If people had small white pine trees, or if they had any native tree, basically, that they can dig out. But the other thing is the timing of when you dig it out. You don't want to be digging a tree out after about the 1st of June because it's just going to be too dry and too much of a shock for it to grow somewhere.
Yeah.
Normally, rule of thumb is you dig hardwood trees in the fall, like maple, oak, black cherry, that kind of thing. You dig in the fall after the leaves drop, so say late October, November, and then you can safely transplant them. Normally, the rule of thumb for coniferous trees like pine, spruce, tamarack, that kind of thing, normally you dig those out in the spring and plant them. They have a better chance of growing, just part of the tree the way it is. So if people wanted to donate trees and they had, say, a bunch of white pine trees, right now would be the perfect time to dig them up, like April.
White pine.
White pine.
That's what we put in, but they're really small. They're still really small.
Sometimes, like that one neighbor who gave us a bunch of trees in one year, she is in the Lauren Beach area. It's all gravelly sand there. So she had all these little spruce and tamarack and white pine and that kind of thing, and cedar. And basically we went over on a day, kind of like today, kind of cool and wet, and dug them all out. And anyway, they did very well. We only lost a couple.
That's something we have here. That's the other one, spruce. I know we've got the main ones, the cedar, spruce, and poplar.
Yep.
A little bit of birch, but not that many. The poplar kind of takes over everything, doesn't it?
It will eventually.
Yeah, because I've seen a poplar grow inside another tree, kind of wind itself around it. And what the heck? We got some, we said we got some ugly looking trees here because they're all kind of squished together. Take any opportunity they can to squeeze in there. So those are the main ones we have on our property. We do have a beech. My husband did see a beech, and we had a ash, but of course it's gone. Which is good.
But if anybody had, say, a bunch of cedar trees they wanted to, have gone, or a bunch of little pine trees or spruce or Canada balsam or
as long as they're a good size.
Or tamarack, they don't have to be big. They could be only like a couple of feet tall.
Yeah.
But if they wanted to have them gone, so let's say they're building a vegetable garden or something and they wanted them out of there.
That's a good idea.
A good time to contact us would be like early in the spring.
Yeah.
You don't want to suddenly realize in July you want to move them because they will die.
Yeah.
One, we can't plant them and maintain them like by watering them all the time. And two, they have a better chance of growing naturally if you plant them early enough so they're not going to go into shock.
That's good to know. I mean, I'm glad I saw this because when I was looking at some of these trees that you're putting in, I hadn't heard a lot of them. So I like the idea that you're filling in these empty spaces. I think it's a great idea.
Yep.
I hope you get enough volunteers. Unfortunately, on weekends I work, and usually nights. So I hope you get enough volunteers for it. And more important, I hope you keep getting the donations from those big organizations. Bruce Power is just wonderful for helping out with everything around here.
Yeah, they've been awesome. OPG gave us a nice donation too for Savage Park. So
they're great.
We've been promoting, through our Facebook groups who is helping us out. Yeah. And honestly, we can't thank the individual people that are coming out to help volunteer.
Yeah, that's hard. But at least
they're the reason we're doing this, and they're the lifeblood of the whole group, really.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Doug, for letting us know about this. I'm hoping people will see this, not if they're not on social media, that they will see what's going on and they can go out there and help and get in touch with you.
Excellent. And I know Blair sent you a bunch of the PowerPoint.
Yes, we got all kinds of visuals. Yeah.
All the information for where people need to sign up to come and plant trees, find out more information is all in that information.
And Mark will be putting it up throughout the
perfect.
interview.
Yeah, I spoke to him before we started about that.
Okay, perfect. Okay, great. Okay.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Passionate content creator ready to expand your audience reach? Do you have unique stories, captivating hobbies, or special interests that deserve a spotlight? Rogers TV is here to amplify your voice within the community. We offer you the platform to broadcast your content to a wider audience. And the best part, it's completely free. Don't miss this opportunity to share your vision and engage with viewers. Find out how Rogers TV can transform your content journey today.
Hi, I'm
Carol Merton, host of We All Belong, Our Neighbors, Our Community.